What are you, Luthen?
I'm damned for what I do.
Hello everyone, and welcome in this discussion of Luthen's morality. Because honestly, morally speaking, he is, and in generally, one of the most interesting characters in Star Wars. In my opinion, he generally blurs the lines between anti-hero and anti-villain.
Right now, I'm more afraid of you than anything.
I mean, in Luthen's backstory, we did see that he was an Imperial.
Stop! Make it stop!
So really, everything that he does and everything that we see is his attempt to right his wrongs. So, I mean, we could say that as an Imperial, he was a villain character, and now we will examine how much he transitioned out of that. Now, I really need to set up some ground rules, because what is a hero and a villain is relatively obvious and easy to say, but when you add the anti-hero and anti-villain part, it becomes a lot more complicated. Even with heroes and villains, people often forget that a hero is not always a protagonist, and a protagonist is not always a hero. Villain protagonists exist. So the role as either protagonist or antagonist or supporting character, whatever, doesn't matter. What matters, if a character is a hero or a villain, is the following three things. What are their motives? What are their goals derived from their motives? And what tools, what means they are using to achieve those? So a very good example of a perfect villain, a horrible, disgusting, despicable villain is Palpatine himself. His goals, his motives are he's just evil. His goals, conquer the whole universe. Methods, literally every evil thing that he could use, creating mass genociding, planet destroying weapons, using completely exploiting the dark side of the Force. That's why he was so disfigured, by the way. If you don't know, that wasn't from lightning. Force lightning doesn't do that to you. He was disfigured because he was abusing the Force. The dark side of the Force is unnatural, and its prolonged use does misfigure the users. And for the perfect hero, honestly, Luke is like 95% there, but his whole character arc is him overcoming some negative stuff. So I'm gonna say Captain America. Pretty self-explanatory, so let's move on. So now I'm gonna quickly explain how a character goes from a hero to an anti-hero and from a villain to an anti-villain. So generally, the most simple examples are when a hero's motivation is not the most heroic or noble, so revenge or greed or something along those lines. Generally, you think of Punisher, although Punisher also his methods are also not the most heroic, so he's not exactly that general archetype of an anti-hero, but then again he's also sometimes villainous, and the whole debate does depend on what you accept as heroic or not. Generally, not everybody sees killing as heroic, but then some other people don't really care. Like Captain America, which I mentioned, he has killed plenty of people. I mean, he's a war veteran. And then an anti-villain would be someone who has quite noble motivations, but his goals and the methods with which he goes after them are everything but heroic. Thanos generally fits that. He has a very noble motive, but both his goals and his methods, his methods can be brutal, but at least your goals are supposed to be good, but they're not. If you think about it, his goal is just to kill lots and lots of people. Like, that's the end result. So both his methods and his goals are very bad. So yeah, those are the basics. Anything more than that doesn't really belong in a video about a specific character. So let's talk about Luthen's motivation. Well, as we saw, he was an Imperial, he witnessed the atrocities of the Empire, and he realized that Palpatine needs to be stopped. However, there is a few more things about his character, which he reveals to us in his famous speech from the first season.
My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight.
So here we see that he's not just a benevolent savior, he's very angry with the Empire, his ego is on the line, not just because he is oppressed, but also because other people are oppressed.
The Empire has been choking us so slowly we're starting not to notice.
I mean, the ego is not just about when we are feeling something that we don't want, but when we see people that we care about. Like, how dare you hurt the ones I care about, or innocent people in general. There is an ego involved there, and that's a very great writing decision to have, which kinda highlights that even his motives are not completely benevolent, but they also show a bit of his dark side mixed with his immense humanity. And talking about Luthen's darkness, let's talk about his goals, because they're not as obvious. Someone would say, oh, but he wants the rebellion to form, and no, that's not a goal, that's an outcome. What his goals are is to fund a rebellion, yes, and to also create civil unrest, which is highlighted in the rest of the clip.
People will suffer.
That's the plan.
So his goal is to bring the suffering in front of the people, to make them experience it themselves, so they will no longer be able to ignore it. In many ways, he's kinda like the reverse Palpatine, because Palpatine created all of the suffering, but part of what he did in the prequels was he orchestrated a situation where he can seize power. And now Luthen, what he's doing is he's orchestrating a situation where people will collaborate together to take that power.
Gorman in play? A new front line against the Empire?
So just like we heard earlier, suffering is the point in Luthen's mind. He doesn't care about small individual wins. He cares about the universe wanting to rebel against the Empire and against Palpatine. And he's pretty much willing to sacrifice anything for that.
It will burn. Very brightly.
It's so cold, calculated, and to quote the man himself,
I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy.
those tools also involve him trying to kill Andor in the first season, if you remember, and also killing Lonnie, which, by the way, I wanna comment on something. A lot of people believe that he was planning to kill him from the beginning or quite early on, but in my opinion, he really did want to bring him to Yavin. I mean, after all, he's so knowledgeable and he's quite a useful asset. But then, when he found out what is going on and how big this thing is, literally and metaphorically, so he kills him, and honestly, I'm pretty sure from that moment he was ready to take his life, as he later on did, with some help. But yeah, his comfort with sacrificing people, I mean, do you remember when he just left 30 people to die?
Plus Krieger.
He doesn't really care about doing the right thing or being liked. He only cares about the mission, which in many ways alienated him from the rest of the rebellion. In many ways, he is an example of a warrior who deep down knows that's the only thing he can be. Just a war machine. Well, not exactly war, but he definitely couldn't evolve to something a bit more palatable for the rebellion. And I mean, he could never be a political figure like Mon Mothma, for example. And we saw it. People of the rebellion didn't really like him. They didn't like his methods. They disagreed with what he did. But it's impossible to disagree with the fact that he is one of the reasons the rebellion was even possible. He is the reason why they found about the Death Star and why they could stop it. He and Lonnie, of course, rest in peace, both of them, I guess. So, really, even though I shared my extremely subjective opinion of it, it's very up to debate. It's mostly about your own morality, like what you find acceptable. Is the sacrifice of innocent people for the greater good a net positive, thus a good deed, or is the death of innocence always an evil act? Is someone who accepts doing evil acts for the greater good evil? I mean, he sacrificed his life. Personally, when I consume media, that's the rule I would use. You sacrifice others. Do you also sacrifice yourself? If yes, then it's acceptable. But in this case, because they never actually sacrifice themselves, I find myself conflicted. That doesn't right his wrongs, but that doesn't override everything he did for the rebellion. So I really hope I get to see people's opinions on it. I feel there is lots of room for discussion here that, I mean, doesn't necessarily have to happen around a video or whatever, but I just hope that someone somewhere feels motivated to talk about it, because this is such an amazing thing that Andor has done. It has really motivated us to think about our current political state and all that stuff, but I feel it also is a pretty good opportunity to talk about those things. Is there such a thing as the means justifying the ends? Personally, I was never of that opinion, but clearly Luthen would be, and clearly what he did worked. So the way that I see it, in the end of the day, Luthen is someone who is a villain, but really tried his best to help the heroes. Like he said, I need all the heroes I can get. He knows he's not a hero. He knew he would die, possibly even wanted to die, and that makes him an extremely tragic character, and a very admirable one as well. He lied to allies, he killed so many innocent people, but in the end of the day, even though most of his goals, or at least many of them, and most of his methods were quite villainous, he is very heroic in spirit. That being said, I'm gonna say, yeah, he's a very tragic and a very lovable anti-villain. He did his best to help, and so yeah. If you're still watching, sorry if the video was a bit silly at times. It's kind of difficult to take yourself too seriously when you do this. Click on this video. It's about how Andor is Star Wars. It's pretty good. And you can click on this one. It's about tragic irony in Andor. It's nowhere near as good, which is why nobody watched it. But you can click on it if you want. Until next time, I guess. Yeah, go away.